Hi, everyone. It's another episode of Black Girl Joy. Today, I am solo dolo, so show me some love by liking, share, subscribe, follow, do all the things on all the platforms depending on where you are. So, I invite you to comment to help add to the conversation because there's a lot of talking on my own. All right. So today I have chosen a very unique topic and a topic that's very special to me, which is what about your friends? Y'all know that song from TLC. Maybe you don't like my singing, like my son doesn't like my singing. But I want to talk to you about adult friendships. So while we get started, I see some of y'all watching. Like, share, subscribe, follow, do all the things LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you are, wherever you may be. Um, but I want to talk to you guys about adult friendships. And it's something we don't talk about a lot because we're adults. We're whole grown adults now in the year 2022. And so I feel like this is an interesting time to bring up this topic because we're coming out of the pandemic where we all stayed shut up in our houses. I know I'm glad to be out a little bit more, be safe, but be out. And we may have lost touch with some of those friends or not talked to them as much. And we're trying to figure out how to socialize again. So, what I feel is super important is community. I've done it for years and years and years, creating community for me specifically with single moms. And that community was important because everyone needs somebody they can lean on and someone they can relate to. And we often have a culture that is very individualistic, but we need to be able to have someone to talk to, someone to lean on, someone to relate to, someone to cry to, someone to cheer us on. We all need that energy in our lives, that positive energy. So that's why we are talking about adult friendships today. So I want to give you some background about me. I'm going to do something today that in coaching or in therapy they may call self-disclosure. So, which I do all the time with you guys, but it's talking about things that are personal to me. So when it comes to this topic about friendships, I've actually struggled really hard with friendships just because of the nature of who I am. So I am what I describe as an extreme introvert. An extreme introvert. If you talk to people who know me as an adult, they'll probably say, yeah, not so much. But if you talk to people who knew me as like growing up, they'll say, oh yeah, yeah, she doesn't like talking to people. Um, and so this, I just want to be very upfront that this is going to frame some of this conversation because my experience as an extreme introvert has made it so that I have to be super intentional about my friendships. When other people aren't introverts, they don't really understand some of the things we may do, especially like when I'm stressed out and stuff like that. So I am also what I call a loner, but I have a lot of, I have friends. And so for a long time, I didn't even recognize the fact that I had friends. I would look at people online who've had friends for like, oh, we grew up together and, we went to college together and now we're still going on vacation and building families together. I'm like, why don't I have that? And it was just recently that I realized, oh, you do have some really good friends. And it's strange. And I'll give you a little bit of history, and this is a little bit of self-disclosure, is that I worked at a job and my new manager kept, talking to me and trying to socialize with me. And so I went to one of my coworkers who was more of a friend, and I was like, I don't understand why this person keeps trying to talk to me. I don't understand what's going on. And she literally looked me in my eyes. I'll never forget because this changed my perspective in life about stuff like this, about myself. And she said, you're just going to have to accept that people like you. People just like you and people want to be around you. And I never considered the fact that people may like me and want to be around me. Now, that may go into some deep rooted other issues we ain't going to talk today about maybe some self-esteem and confidence and like my value, like we talked about last week, value. But I really did not have an understanding as to why someone would want to be friends with me. And so over time, I come to realize like how my thought process impacted my relationships with my friends. And I have really good friends, really solid friends. So that's just a little background about me. So let's talk about having friends as an adult. It is super hard and stressful. You have work, you have a schedule, you have kids who are also on a different schedule, you have priorities, bills to pay, shifting priorities, and then you're also growing and changing. So you have to adjust your friend group. So your friends, when you're a teenager, may not be your close friends as an adult. And it's not that you are, what do they call it? Um, when you like turn your back on where you come from, all of that craziness. It's not that. It's just that you grow and you learn. As you grow, you should learn more about your values and your character and what works for you, and be more intentional about who is around you. And sometimes that change and that shifts, which makes it really hard to have an adult friendship. And often adult friendships come as a last priority because we have so much going on. And what I'm going to say is, don't make it a last priority. Your friendships are part of your own self-care. Like, oh my gosh, during the pandemic, and I was stuck at the house with just me and my child, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't talk to anyone. And believe it or not, that impacts us, right? It's okay. My child's not even young. He's old. He's like a high schooler, right? But it's still not the same talking to him versus talking to an adult. And so, how do you go about maintaining those relationships? My first thing is saying, please don't feel like you always have to be an individual. You are an individual, but you don't always have to move in a sense that you have no one to count on. And that is one of my hardest things with adult friendships, is that if I'm stressed, I feel like I need to move through that alone. And so I am very particular about when I'm super stressed out, when I feel like things aren't going kind of the way I want them to go, definitely the way I want them to go, I isolate. I isolate. And it's not always the most helpful behavior, but it helps me kind of work through mentally what I'm going through and come to a solution. But it is very detrimental if your friends are used to you talking to them regularly, and you just kind of like disappear. And so that's something I had to work on, was not, you know, disappearing, ghosted. Yeah, I ghost my friends all the time. I've lost so many friends because I have ghosted them, and they've assumed something that I was thinking that I was not thinking at all. It was just I was stressed out. So I had to go in the little corner. I had to put myself in the corner. So it's never just you. It's never just me and my kids. We have this mentality that it's just me and God. God put people in your life. If you feel like the people in your life, or you feel like you don't have the right people in your life to support you, then I'm going to tell you to go find some more people. They're out there. I personally take a lot of care when I choose who I choose to be around, but they're out there. So the things you're going to want to look for as you're looking at these adult friendships are going to be this. So, first, the easiest way is a common interest. As an adult, we make friends at work. In fact, if you're watching live, drop in the chat, where do you make friends as an adult? But we make friends at work. But there's other ways. I started a single moms group for Atlanta. And I made friends through the single moms group because we had a common interest, right? I made friends through my son's PTA because we had a common interest. So where can you find those places where people have common interests? And the funny thing is, when you have common interests, sometimes, or a lot of times, you'll have common character traits, right? Common values. So that's my number 2. When you're looking at your adult friends, you're looking for common values and character traits, right? So that means for me, when I found friends at the PTA, they had a value of family. They had a value in education. They had a value in giving back to their community. So it worked really well. Same thing with the single moms group. They had a value of family, taking care of their kids and the same struggles I'm going through, they're going through. And I promise you, if you're going through a struggle, there's someone else who's going through something similar that can relate to you. So make sure that you find people who align with your interests and align with your values. That does not mean that everyone in the single moms group is my friend. Actually, I met a lot of great women, just we haven't stayed connected. That's another topic. But it doesn't mean that everyone has to be your friend. It doesn't mean that everyone that's your friend right now should be your friend. But find your group, find your tribe, find your circle that you can rely on. So that means that your friends are being supportive and they are adding positivity to your life and all of those good things. Now, here's the thing that I've seen lately. And I don't know if it's happening so much amongst friends, but I definitely see it online. No one is going to be your everything, and no one is going to agree with you on everything. And I feel like we're in a society, if we don't agree, we feel like, oh, well, you're not my friend. I'm not going to like you. Everybody's not going to agree with you. And you should never want a friend that's going to 100% agree with you. You shouldn't want that. You want someone who challenges you, challenges your thinking. You want someone who feels free to let you know where you stand and check you. I mean, everybody need to be checked every once in a while. I need to be checked. You need to be checked. We all need to be checked every once in a while. So when you're looking at your adult friends, you want to look for that character trait of they're going to be honest with you and transparent. Because if they ain't telling it to you, they're telling it to somebody else. And maybe that's on another topic, but you want to have someone who can be upfront and honest with you. And if they need to check you, they need to check you. It just is what it is. So, but remember, this person's not going to be your everything, and they don't have to be. That's why you have more than one friend. I have one friend that I know if I go out with, we're going to have a good time. I have one friend that I know if I complain to, she's going to tell me to get my stuff together and keep it moving. I have friends that play different roles. I may have a friend I go to for when I'm sad. I may have a friend that I go to when I'm excited about something. You can have friends play different roles. And the thing that could be detrimental to your friendships is mixing up those roles, right? You don't want to mix up those roles because that's going to, know who you're talking to. And it's not that everyone has bad intent or something like that. It could just be you have a friend, and this would be me. I'm this friend. I'm very analytical. I like to solve problems and look at A, B, C, D, E. So if you come to me with, I have this problem, my initial reaction is going to be jumping to solve. You may not even want me to jump in and solve. You may just want me to listen. So I've had to step back and be like, okay, let me just listen. But everyone's not going to have that awareness. So you don't want to try to change who that person is, but have the friendship, have it naturally. What they can offer, what you can offer them, you can offer them. So, but that doesn't mean it's not a valuable friendship. I need the friend that I can go out and just have fun with sometimes and nothing serious comes up, right? You need that, or at least I do. All right. So the next thing I want to talk to, so after you make your friend, one of the hardest things to do is keeping these connections, keeping the connections. It is so difficult to keep connections as adults because we have so much to do, right? And so I just want to give you some tips on what I do to keep these connections. And I'm going pretty fast. So if you have something to put in the comments, please do. Okay. So one of the easiest ways we keep in contact with our connections is social media, right? It's not the best way by any means, but it's an easy way and it's convenient. And as adults, we have a lot going on. So if it's that I'm going to post on my friend every birthday and every time she has a promotion on LinkedIn, or every time she promotes something for her business, I'm going to share it. That's what I'm going to do, because it's important that I keep those connections and I show my support, even if I'm drowning over here. I can always just scroll through social media and say, like, now that doesn't replace personal connection because I feel like social media has definitely replaced how we socialize and that actual intimate personal connection. But it is a simple, easy way to say, okay, I've touched base with this person. So it's an option. Don't rule it out if you don't have to. All right. The next thing that really worked well for me when I go into my isolation is I have a friend that I go see every Marvel movie with. Right. Every Marvel, every DC movie. And it may sound strange, and Marvel and DC doesn't have to be your thing. But what it did was it actually kind of forced me to get out during my period of isolation, and we always stay connected because we're always going to DC Marvel movies that come out every 2 to 3 months, right? So we always had that touch point, and it really helped me maintain that friendship for over probably a decade now. We've maintained that friendship, but it's just as simple as that. Okay, we always go to Marvel. It doesn't have to be that for you. It could be, I had another friend, we say, okay, we're going to go to lunch at least once a quarter. So once a quarter, we put it on our calendars to go to lunch. And it may seem frivolous, but those lunches revitalize me, and I can run things by her definitely professionally, personally, and she offers me like the best advice. So create touch points that occur naturally or that occur regularly. That way you can maintain those friendships that are important to you. All right. And then the last one is celebrations. That's also an easy way. If your friend posts that she got a promotion, invite her to lunch if you can, even if it's over Zoom. Celebrate those times with your friends so that you can maintain that connection. Because who knows, when my son leaves, I may have a lot of extra time now. I'll be looking for all my friends, right? And so it's so important to maintain that connection so that you can have that person to lean on and they have that person to lean on. And that's just the way life works, right? We need those connections. I'm not going to stop saying that. All right. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is when to end a friendship, when to let it go. Right. And so that's hard and difficult. And I don't think you always have to just stop and let a friendship go. You may just have to pause a friendship, but it's important to know when to let go. And so I'm going to give you a couple of things. I wrote it down. So if you see me looking down, that's what it is. I'm going to give you a couple of things to look for. Okay. You have a friend, you have positive things happen for you, but your friend's not supporting you and not cheering you on. They are questioning, and I want to preface that and not in like the analytical way. It's just they have something negative to say every time you bring it up, or they end the conversation quickly when you bring it up. That may not be a friendship that you want to pour time into, right? Because your friendship should be giving you something and you should be giving something to them. But you want people around you who are going to feed into what you have going on, feed into your success. You don't need that negative energy kind of raining on the parade all the time, maybe some of the time, but not all the time. Like, chill out, as my nephew tells me, chill out. What is going on? Number 2, they have no empathy. No empathy. And I know empathy is like the big word that I see on LinkedIn every day now, right? But it's so important that you keep people around you who are empathetic and can relate to you and can feel for you in your hard times. That's just, I mean, it just is. So I'll give you an example. It's another self-disclosure. I was going through a really hard time, and again, I isolate. So I'm really working on myself to like tell people before I isolate, because I'm probably gonna isolate regardless. And so I had to step away and isolate from my friendships because I had a lot. When I say I had a lot going on, I had a lot going on, and everyone knew. Everyone knew it was impacting every area of my life. Um, yeah, so it was big, it was major, and it was long term. And so getting close towards the end of that journey, um, I actually messaged my friends and said, "Hey, I know I haven't been there. Sorry about it. It's just a lot going on." Again, they knew what was going on. It wasn't one time I ghosted and didn't tell anybody. But I literally had a friend who was like, "Well, you weren't there for me for this thing that happened." It's like, ma'am, I was barely there for myself. What do you want me to do? And so I think that lack of empathy in that moment really, especially after everything I had been through for a few years, it like really allowed me to take a step back and be able to set a boundary and say, you know what, it's okay, right? If that's her perspective, that's her perspective, but I got to keep on pushing, because if you can't have empathy for me in a moment like I went through, um that I wouldn't wish on anyone, then that's not somebody I need to maintain a connection with. It's just not. So it is what it is. So that was a recent story, um where I had to end a friendship, and I think it was mutual, which was, it's nice, right? No hard feelings, just keep it moving. But you may find that you have to end those relationships because they're just not, it's just not what you want in your, like I say, in my spirit, in my area. That's not what I want. So then the last thing I'm going to mention, so I've mentioned someone who's just not there for you, cheering you on, celebrating you. I feel like you should have someone who celebrates you. Someone who lacks empathy, time to end it, right? And the last thing is your values are not aligned. And what I mean by that is all of us have our own unique set of values. And it doesn't have to be aligned perfectly, but I guess for me, um, trying to find a value. A value for me is family, right? It would be really hard for me to be around another parent that doesn't value family. It just would. Um, and I don't know if that's fair or not, but when your values aren't aligned, you may find yourself in situations or predicaments that you don't want to be in, or you may find yourself in situations where you feel like you cannot be honest with the other person. And it's not that, like I said, you don't have to be symbolical. Like you don't have to be 100, but you want to make sure that there is some alignment around your values, because that's really what's going to hold you together over time. So we're coming to the last little bit, and where we at? We got like 4 minutes to go, right? So I want to recap what I talked about. So I said, what about your friends? So I let you know I'm alone. I'm a loner, but I feel like having friends is 100% necessary to your health, your mental health, your emotional health. It just is. You just need friends. So if you don't have a friend, or if you don't have friends that you're really close to and you relate to really well right now, go find one. How are you going to find and make friends? We talked about finding people who have a common interest. So whether it's through a social group, a community group, at church, at the school, wherever it is online, start to build those connections. Make sure you look for common values and don't expect anyone to be your like one all be all. No one's going to be that. It's not realistic. Don't put the expectations on anyone to do that. How do you keep connections? Make sure you have some touch base in your daily flow, right? Or your weekly or yearly flow. Make sure you have some touch base. It doesn't have to be an hour. It doesn't have to be talking on the phone for 2 hours every week or every day. It don't have to be that deep. It could be liking a post on social media. It could be celebrating them when they have taken them out for dinner, when they get a promotion or have a birthday. Maybe it's every birthday you do something, right? Me and my sister go to a seafood restaurant every year because our birthday's in the same month. Well, almost every year, right? So we that's our little celebration, right? Once a year. And it also can be like a scheduled or routine activity. For me, it's the movies. For you, it may be a basketball game. I don't know, a football game. But find those ways to connect with your peers and your community, so that you feel that sense of belonging. That's why this is all really important. And the last thing we talked about is when to end it. And that is when someone is not adding positive value to your life. And I'm going to preface that in just a second. When someone has no empathy, they just, I'm just going to say, don't even try, just move on. And when someone's values aren't aligned with yours, and it feels like friction, or you can't be honest, whatever that is, it may be time just to let it go. So evaluate that. Now, before I end, I do want to say this. Everyone goes through their highs and lows. So when I say I go into isolation, I go into isolation. Therefore, I may sometimes abandon my friends. I can be honest about that. Um, yeah. So make sure you use context, right? So when I said I was going through a hard time and my friend was upset because I wasn't there for something nice, really good that happened in her life, you do also have to use context. So if your friend is dealing with emotional or whatever situation and they can't, like, they don't have the mental or the emotional capacity to celebrate you in the moment, take that in consideration, because that's empathy and that's what friends do. All right. You got to take that into the moment. I'm talking about someone who just won't show empathy at all, or someone who just will never celebrate you. Then you cut it off. Cut it off. So I have really enjoyed talking to you. If you have any questions, you can look me up. I'm on LinkedIn. If you could be streaming this on LinkedIn right now, make sure you connect with me. I'm going to share my LinkedIn. You'll find me at Roselle Butts on LinkedIn. So I'm there. Feel free to DM me. I also have a coaching business. So if you would like to schedule a free coaching consultation, feel free to email me. My email's below, joy at active-potential.com. And lastly, and most importantly, please like, share, subscribe to Black Girl Joy on all the platforms. You can find it on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do. And then we will see you next time. Drop comments. I'll respond to them. All right. See you later.